Sierra, I've got your Module 2 project program here. Let's take a look at it together. All right, here's the template you turned in. And oh, it looks like you chose option 1, the wish list. Okay, so let's see what we have to do in planning this. Create a wish list by selecting 3 items you want. So you've made some wish lists. Do your research, find where you purchase, find the price. Think about what user input is required for other people to use your program. So that would mean, would you want them to be able to put their own items in, or would they be ordering the same items you're ordering and just putting in the price? What would it be? Think about how you will write an equation to calculate the subtotal. So the subtotal of your items, and then the tax, calculating the tax, and then the total cost that has tax and shipping. Use 6.5% for the tax. So for every dollar you spend, you pay 6.5 cents tax, or $10, you pay 65 cents tax, and a $5.99 flat rate shipping. Your output must include the name of each item, the price of each item, the subtotal, then that's before tax and shipping, the subtotal, the total amount of your tax, which is calculated because it's 6.5% of however much you spend, the shipping fee, which is $5.99, and the total cost. And so you looked up some items, $282.99, but you're going to give the retailer an extra penny. I don't know that 30. No, you can actually use these numbers. Python is fine using float numbers. We know how to do that. And no, I hope you didn't use 6 because the shipping is $5.99. People get mad when you overcharge them, even when it's a penny. It's crazy. People get it. And it's 0.065%. So, all right. So we skip option 2, option 3. So the design of it, you have to ask the user. So it's time to design it. You have to ask the user for at least 3 numeric values. So at the very minimum, whoever uses your program has to at least put in 3 numbers. They don't have to enter items. They don't have to put their wish list. They can use your wish list and they just enter the prices. Make sure you use integer or float, depending on whether you got integers or decimals. Calculations to get, so that would be calculating your tax, your subtotal, your total, and then make sure you have clear, organized output and using the string function to print words and numbers together. Pseudocode. Insert your pseudocode. Tell the program to calculate the total cost of my shopping list. Okay, that's fine if you use your list. The user would just input the values, I guess, and get the correct total. Use Python idle. Make sure you got the heading with your name, date, description, indent things, meaningful names for the variables. And let's see. Okay, here's your code. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. Copy. There's your screenshot. Okay, it looks like you did round it to $6. And I don't see a subtotal on there before tax and shipping. So we're a little bit to work on. And your tax looks like it only charges 6.5 cents. But they spent a lot more than $1. Because 6.5 cents would be the tax on $1, because that's what 6.5% of 1 is. Let's see, then you answer. I got an error. I forgot a space for indexing. One of the print statements. I had that in there. Great. I could try and figure out how to use less print functions. Use less spaces between the codes, but then take up some space. Good as for feedback. Find a website review program. Give us tips. Don't have really anyone or anything else to ask though. Okay, can make math more complicated by division or multiplication. Well, you got to do some multiplication to figure the tax, because it's 6.5% times whatever you spent. It might get confusing if I already have a lot of code in space. All right, so let's take this code that I've copied here and let's put it in a Python window. All right. Yeah, you do have some extra spaces. I mean, you can delete those spaces and just to make more of it on the screen at one time, but that's fine. I mean, I like the spacing here. It kind of helps break out different parts of it. So, all right, let's run it. Run program. Oh, it didn't ask any inputs. We didn't have the user input anything. And that's the output I saw on your template there. So let's look at what your program's doing here. So you've got your name, date, purpose of program. That's fine. That's great. Define main. You've put the switch in here. You said it was $282.99. We should use the $282.99. But it should be the user inputting that, like switch equals, we want it to be a float value because we want decimals in there. How much does the Nintendo Switch cost? Guess I should put a question mark there. See, that way, oh, I didn't put the input. Input. There you go. So I need another parentheses. So that way, when it runs, the user has to enter that. So like, look, run. How much does the Nintendo Switch cost? $282.99. There it is. Switch costs $282.99. See, you're supposed to have 3 inputs. You don't have to have them enter the shopping list unless you want them to use their own shopping list. But according to our template, the only thing that's required is 3 numeric values. So they just have to enter the cost. Some people have written the program to where they enter their own wish list. They enter an item and then the cost of that item, and then enter a second item and the cost of that item, and a third item and the cost of that item, and then it totals up their items for them. So that's pretty cool too, but not required. The only thing that's required is asking them to put 3 numeric values. So we're missing that. All right, so these should all ask for the user to input. And then let's see, if this is where you're calculating your tax, you just said the tax is 6.5 cents. So that's why we need a subtotal in there. So subtotal would be the price of the Switch plus the Feathered Wyvern plus Xena color. So I don't have to have parentheses on that. I'm just adding those 3 things together, but we can do it just because it's a little cleaner. It looks a little easier to understand. So the subtotal would say, here's what your items cost. And so the tax would be the subtotal times 0.065, which is 6.5% in decimal. Oh, I misspelled subtotal. So that would calculate the tax. And then the shipping is supposed to be $5.99, not $6. So let's see what that does now. Run. Oh, I got to enter the $282.99. Okay, so now $282.99. It's still got the 30 because we didn't change those inputs. Those need to be changed, to be where the user inputs it. But $282.99, $30, $20. That all adds up. We should print the subtotal. Let's add that. Print time to shop. Here's your shopping list. Before the tax, let's put here print subtotal dollars plus string, and I called it subtotal with a capital T, so I need to do that as well. Okay, so we've added a print line for the subtotal now. So let's try this again. Oh, now I got a bad input. What did I mess up? I didn't put a quote at the beginning. Got to have all that in quotes. I missed the beginning quote. All right. Now that runs. $282.99. So this costs $282.99. This is 30, is 20. So the subtotal is $332.99. That's what it is when you add all these 3 numbers together. Then the tax on $332.99 would be $21.64. So that'd be right. That's about 6.5% of $330. So you'd pay $21 in tax. Now, actually, here in Northwest Arkansas, our tax is like 9.25%. So we'd pay like $30 in tax. Shipping is $5.99. So our total price with $332 plus the $21 plus the $5.99 and the cents over here, $360.62. So you had a few issues in there. You didn't have any inputs. You weren't calculating the tax correctly. You rounded the shipping to $6 when it says $5.99. Only charge $5.99. You will make people mad if you charge them even a penny too much. If they say, "Hey, that's not the shipping," you'll get complaints. So, and then this is fine. A switch plus this. But now that we've added subtotal, we could just change this to say subtotal plus the tax and the flat rate shipping. since we have that total now, since we've already added these three. Now you had all that because you didn't have the subtotal. But since the template said in our output, let's see, that was up here under our thing. The output must include the name, price, and the subtotal. You didn't have the subtotal in there, but you had the other things printed, even if they weren't correctly calculated. You just didn't have the subtotal. So we just added that in here. So we have that to print out. But since we have the subtotal, we can just take the subtotal and then add the tax and shipping to it. And that gives us our total cost. But overall, good effort in it. He had some of the things, missed a little bit on the details. Got to have the input statements. Don't overcharge people. Tax wasn't quite correct, but I'll get this grade. I'll look at the rubric, see how many points I can give on it. You got the pseudocode, you got the questions, so you'll get most of the points on it. I'll just there's just a few deductions for a few things that are off, but overall not bad. I'll get this feedback to you. See you in class. Have a great Thanksgiving.